Captain Jake Morrison loved to talk. Every morning at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time, his voice would crackle through the communication networks of the Kepler trade routes. The alien traders had grown used to his cheerful greetings and terrible jokes. The Zephyrian merchants would groan when he started telling stories about his adventures on distant worlds. But they listened anyway, because Jake Morrison was reliable, friendly, and always had the best information about safe passage through the dangerous asteroid fields. On this particular Tuesday morning, the Zephyrian trade station waited for Jake's voice. They had cargo manifests to discuss and route updates to share. The station operator, a blue-skinned alien named Kellex, adjusted his headset and prepared for the usual flood of human chatter. The frequency remained silent. 3 sectors away, Commander Lisa Hayes should have been giving her daily security briefing to the Altarian defense grid. For 2 years, her calm voice had provided updates on patrol schedules, suspicious ship movements, and weather conditions around the jump gates. The Altarian command center had synchronized their entire operation around her reports. At 08:30, they realized her voice was not coming through their speakers. The silence spread like ripples in a pond. Human voices that had filled the galaxy's communication networks for 300 years simply stopped. Trade ships that normally broadcasted music and news as they moved between stars now traveled in complete quiet. Research stations that shared scientific discoveries around the clock went dark. Military patrols that coordinated with alien forces ceased all contact. Dr. Susan Grant ran the most popular scientific research station in the galaxy. Her team of human scientists had been studying a new type of star formation in the Cygnus region. Every day, they shared their findings with universities and research centers across 50 different worlds. Alien scientists had built their own studies around the human data, depending on the regular flow of information. The data stream stopped, without warning. On the diplomatic front, Colonel Pete Davis had been Earth's representative to the Centauri Alliance for 5 years. His office sent hundreds of messages each day, coordinating meetings, sharing intelligence, and managing the complex relationships between human colonies and alien governments. Ambassador Vextar, the Alliance's chief diplomat, had 3 meetings, scheduled with Pete that week. None of Pete's staff answered their calls. Carlos Rivera and Amy Patterson were the galaxy's most successful trading partners. Their company, Stellar Freight Solutions, moved goods between human space and 47 alien worlds. They employed thousands of pilots, dock workers, and administrative staff. Their communication networks handled millions of transactions each day, from small personal shipments to massive industrial contracts. Every communication channel went silent at the same moment. The initial reaction was confusion. Technical teams across the galaxy ran diagnostics on their equipment, thinking the problem was on their end. The Corvaxi hegemony sent repair crews to their border communication stations. The Etherian collective checked their translation software, wondering if something had broken in the language processing systems. But as hours passed, it became clear that the problem was not with alien technology. Human ships were still moving through space. Human colonies were still functioning. Human trade vessels were still making deliveries. They simply were not talking to anyone. Captain Ryan Burke's exploration vessel, the Star Wanderer, had been mapping new systems beyond the rim of known space. For years, he had shared his discoveries with the Galactic Exploration Council, sending detailed reports about new planets, unusual phenomena, and potential hazards. His enthusiasm for discovery had inspired a generation of young explorers from dozens of species. The Star Wanderer was spotted by a Draconian patrol ship, moving through unexplored space as usual. The patrol ship hailed them, expecting Ryan's usual friendly response and offer to share navigation data. Instead, they received only silence. The human ship continued its mission, scanning planets and taking measurements, but it ignored all attempts at communication. The pattern was the same everywhere. Human ships acknowledged traffic control when necessary for safety, but only with basic navigation data. They followed established flight paths and responded to emergency situations, but the constant stream of casual conversation, jokes, stories, and shared information had completely stopped. General Kate Wilson commanded the human peacekeeping force stationed at Firebase Alpha, a strategic location between three volatile alien territories. Her troops had spent years building relationships with local populations, mediating disputes and preventing conflicts from escalating into wars. The alien leaders in the region had grown to trust her judgment and rely on her advice. When the local alien commanders tried to reach her for their weekly coordination meeting, they found only automated responses. The human peacekeepers remained at their posts, continued their patrols, and maintained their equipment. But they no longer participated in the diplomatic discussions that had kept the region stable for decades. By the end of the first week, panic was beginning to set in among the alien governments. The Nexus Council, the galaxy's primary governing body, called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss the unprecedented situation. "The humans have gone dark," announced Prime Minister Zector of the Altarian Defense Grid. "Complete communication blackout across all human territories and assets. Our trade agreements are in jeopardy," added Chief Executive Morgan of the Draconian Empire. "Human merchants are still delivering goods, but they won't negotiate new contracts or discuss payment terms. The scientific implications are severe," stated Professor Yildar from the Etherian Collective. "We have lost access to 30% of our research data. Human scientific contributions were far more extensive than we realized." Ambassador Vextar stood at the center of the assembly hall, his tentacles rippling with anxiety. "The question we must ask ourselves is simple. Why have the humans chosen silence? This is not a technical failure or a political dispute. This is a deliberate decision by an entire species to cut communication with the rest of the galaxy." The silence was unnerving in ways that none of the alien species had anticipated. For 3 centuries, human voices had been the background noise of galactic civilization. Their chatter, their music, their arguments, their laughter had filled the empty spaces between stars. Traders shared gossip, explorers told stories of strange new worlds, and soldiers sang songs to pass the time during long patrols. Without human voices, space felt empty and cold. The communication networks that had buzzed with constant activity now carried only the formal, efficient exchanges of alien governments and corporations. The warmth and unpredictability that humans had brought to galactic culture was gone, leaving behind a sterile efficiency that no one had asked for. Lieutenant Commander Steve Harper's reconnaissance squadron had been conducting routine patrols along the outer rim of human space. Their ships were still visible on long-range sensors, still following their patrol routes, still maintaining their positions. But when alien security forces tried to coordinate with them about suspicious activity in the border regions, they received no response. The humans were still there, still active, still working, but they had withdrawn from the galactic community as completely as if they had never made contact at all. The question that haunted every alien leader was the same. What were the humans planning, and why did they need absolute secrecy to do it? 2 months had passed since the humans went silent, and the galaxy was beginning to understand what it had lost. The absence of human voices was not just a missing sound. It was the collapse of an entire network that had held galactic civilization together in ways no one had realized. Captain Ben Adams commanded the defense fleet protecting the neutral zone between the Corvaxi hegemony and the Stellar Federation. For years, his ships had been the unofficial peacekeepers in a region where old grudges simmered just below the surface. His daily reports had kept both governments informed about ship movements, potential threats, and diplomatic opportunities. Now the neutral zone felt like a powder keg with no one watching the fuse. The Corvaxi Border Patrol commander, war leader, Tekvar found himself making decisions without the human intelligence he had relied on for years. Strange ships had been spotted near the disputed mining stations, but without Captain Adams sharing information about their origins and intentions, Tekvar had no way to tell if they were smugglers, pirates, or advanced scouts for an invasion. The humans always knew who was who out here, Tekvar muttered to his second-in-command. Their ships talked to everyone. Their traders heard everything. Now we are flying blind. 3 sectors away, the same problem was affecting Commander Dan Rogers and his patrol group. Rogers had been stationed in the asteroid belt mining region, where dozens of different species worked dangerous jobs extracting rare metals from floating rocks. Accidents were common, pirates were a constant threat, and disputes over mining rights happened every week. The human patrol ships were still there, still responding to emergency calls and preventing major conflicts, but they no longer shared the casual information that had kept the region stable. Rogers used to chat with miners, traders, and transport pilots, gathering gossip and rumors that helped him predict trouble before it started. Without those conversations, small problems were growing into big ones. Dr. Rachel Moore had been conducting deep space research in the Dark Nebula region for 3 years. Her scientific expedition had made groundbreaking discoveries about star formation, black hole behavior, and exotic matter. More importantly, her team had shared everything they learned with the galactic scientific community. The Etherian Collective had built their entire space exploration program around human research. Dr. Yil Nem, the collective's chief scientist, had worked closely with Dr. Moore's team, combining human curiosity with Etherian analytical methods to unlock the mysteries of the universe. Now Yil Nem sat in his laboratory, staring at data that made no sense without the human context. "We thought we were partners," he said to his research assistant. "But we were students. The humans were teaching us how to think about the universe, and we never realized it." The economic impact was becoming severe. The Draconian Empire had built their luxury trade business around human distribution networks. Captain Carlos Rivera and his partner Amy Patterson had connections throughout human space, moving high-end goods to wealthy human colonies that had developed expensive tastes. Without human merchants, the Draconian warehouses were full of products that no one else wanted to buy. The tentacle silk scarves that human fashion designers loved were worthless to other species. The crystalline sculptures that decorated human homes meant nothing to alien cultures. Trade Consortium leader Morgex stood in his largest warehouse, looking at billions of credits worth of merchandise that had no buyers. The humans were not just customers, he realized. They created demand. They made things valuable by wanting them. The same pattern was repeating across the galaxy. The Zephyrian medical trade had depended on human research into biological compatibility between species. Human doctors like Dr. Kevin Walsh and Dr. Maria Santos had spent decades studying how different alien biologies interacted, developing treatments that could work across species lines. Without human medical research, the Zephyrian healing centers were struggling to treat alien patients. What had seemed like simple procedures became dangerous experiments. The knowledge that human doctors had freely shared was proving impossible to replace. President Laura Jackson had been more than Earth's representative to the Galactic Senate. She had been a bridge between human thinking and alien logic, translating ideas and finding compromises that satisfied everyone. Her absence from the political sphere was creating chaos in galactic governance. Senator Kexmol of the Centauri Alliance found himself in the middle of a trade dispute between the mining guild and the transport union. President Jackson would have solved this in an hour, he complained to his staff. She understood how to make both sides happy. Without her, every disagreement becomes a crisis. The military implications were the most frightening. General Kate Wilson's peacekeeping forces had been stationed in 3 different sectors, preventing conflicts that could have escalated into system-wide wars. Her troops had not just been soldiers, but diplomats, mediators, and intelligence gatherers. Without human peacekeepers, old enemies were beginning to test each other's defenses. The Altarian defense grid detected Corvaxi scout ships near their border stations. The Stellar Federation found unauthorized mining operations in their territory. Small incidents that human peacekeepers would have resolved quietly were turning into diplomatic crises. Commander Alex Turner's battle group had been the galaxy's rapid response force, rushing to help during emergencies and natural disasters. His ships carried rescue equipment, medical supplies, and engineering teams that could repair damaged stations or evacuate threatened colonies. The battle group was still active, still responding to emergency calls. But they no longer coordinated with alien governments or shared information about their capabilities. When the volcanic moon of Kepler 7 threatened to explode, Turner's ships arrived to help with the evacuation, but they worked in complete silence, leaving the local authorities confused about the rescue plan. Captain Henry Clark's Deep Space Monitoring Station had been the galaxy's early warning system. His sensors watched for dangerous phenomena like solar flares, rogue asteroids, and unstable wormholes. His warnings had saved millions of lives over the years, giving ships and colonies time to prepare for natural disasters. The monitoring station was still operating, still collecting data. But the warnings were no longer being shared with the galactic community. Ships flying through dangerous regions no longer received advance notice of hazards. Colonies near unstable stars had no idea when to expect dangerous radiation bursts. The silence was not just missing information. It was missing the human approach to problems. Humans had always been willing to share knowledge, to help strangers, to risk their own safety for the benefit of others. They had built relationships across species lines, creating trust and cooperation where none had existed before. Lieutenant Colonel Mary Phillips commanded the human forces stationed at Jump Gate 7, one of the busiest transportation hubs in the galaxy. Her security teams had worked closely with alien customs officials, sharing intelligence about smuggling operations and criminal organizations. Without human cooperation, Jump Gate 7 was becoming a haven for illegal activity. Criminals who had been afraid of human detection methods were becoming bolder. Smuggling rings that human intelligence had disrupted were rebuilding their operations. The alien security chief, Inspector Veltar, watched helplessly as his arrest rates dropped and crime increased. The humans saw patterns we missed, he admitted to his team. They understood criminal behavior in ways we never learned. As the third month of silence began, fear was replacing confusion throughout the galaxy. The humans were not gone, but they had withdrawn so completely that they might as well have disappeared. Their ships moved through space like ghosts. Their colonies operated like closed fortresses, and their military forces acted like they were preparing for something terrible. The question that haunted every alien leader was growing more urgent. What were the humans preparing for? And why did they need to cut all contact with their former allies to do it? 6 months had passed since the Great Silence began, and fear was spreading through the galaxy like a disease. What had started as confusion and inconvenience had grown into something much darker. The alien civilizations were no longer just missing human cooperation. They were terrified of what humanity might be planning. The Nexus Council met in emergency session for the 15th time since the silence began. The Great Assembly Hall buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss the growing crisis. Fear made them suspicious of each other, and suspicion made them angry. The humans are planning something, declared War Commander Zektar of the Korvaxi hegemony. No species goes silent for this long without a reason. They are preparing for war. Ambassador Vextar tried to maintain calm, but even his steady voice carried worry. We have no evidence that humans are preparing for military action. Their behavior could have many explanations. Then explain it, snapped Prime Minister Koldex of the Stellar Federation. Explain why they continue their patrols but refuse all contact. Explain why their ships pass through our space without acknowledgement. Explain why they have sealed their borders tighter than a military blockade. The truth was that no one could explain it. Human behavior had become completely unpredictable, and that unpredictability was more frightening than any direct threat. Captain Jake Morrison's trading vessel had been spotted in 7 different sectors over the past month. Each time, alien authorities had tried to make contact, hoping for some clue about human intentions. Each time, Morrison had ignored their calls and continued on his route. His ship was still carrying cargo, still making deliveries, but he moved through space like a machine following programmed instructions. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium had tried everything to get Morrison's attention. They offered him exclusive contracts, threatened to ban him from their stations, even sent ships to intercept him. Nothing worked. Morrison delivered his cargo, collected payment through automated systems, and departed without saying a word. He used to tell jokes that made our loading crews laugh, said Station Master Kelks to his supervisors. Now he scares them. Something has changed the humans, and we do not know what. Intelligence agencies across the galaxy were working desperately to understand what was happening in human space. The Draconian Empire sent spy ships to observe human colonies from a distance. The Altarian defense grid monitored human communication frequencies, hoping to detect some signal. The Etherian collective analyzed human ship movements, looking for patterns that might reveal their plans. All they found was more mystery. Human colonies were more active than ever before. Construction projects that had been planned for years were suddenly being completed in months. Mining operations were extracting resources at unprecedented rates. Shipyards were working around the clock. But no one could tell what they were building because human space had become completely closed to outside observation. Dr. Susan Grant's research station had been joined by 3 more human science vessels. Long-range sensors showed massive construction activity around the station, but the purpose of the construction was unclear. The Etherian scientists who had once worked closely with Grant's team could only watch from a distance as their former partners built something in secret. "They are not just conducting research anymore," reported Chief Scientist Yilnem to the Etherian Council. "They are building something large enough to require 4 different construction ships and enough resources to supply a small colony." The military buildup was the most concerning development. Human defense fleets were reorganizing into new formations that made no sense according to traditional military doctrine. Ships that had patrolled separate regions were being grouped together. Defense stations were being reinforced with new weapons systems. Patrol routes were being changed to cover areas that had never seemed strategically important. General Kate Wilson's peacekeeping forces had withdrawn from their positions between warring alien factions. The troops were still in the region, but they had pulled back to defensive positions around human installations. They no longer intervened in alien conflicts or responded to requests for assistance. Without human peacekeepers, 3 different border disputes had escalated into shooting wars. The conflicts were small, but they were spreading as old alliances broke down under the pressure of fear and uncertainty. Commander Dan Rogers had been ordered to evacuate all human personnel from the mining stations in the asteroid belt. The evacuation was conducted with military precision, but it left the alien miners confused and frightened. Human security forces had protected the mining operations for decades. Without them, the region was becoming lawless. The humans are abandoning positions they have held for generations, reported Intelligence Officer Mortex to the Corvaxi High Command. They are consolidating their forces around their own territory. This is preparation for either defense or offense. The economic warfare had begun. Human traders were still honoring existing contracts, but they were not negotiating new ones. Human colonies were becoming self-sufficient, reducing their imports of alien goods to almost nothing. Human manufacturers were stockpiling resources instead of selling them to alien buyers. The Draconian Empire was facing economic collapse as their luxury trade networks fell apart. The Zephyrian medical centers were running out of human-developed medicines. The Corvaxi industrial complex was struggling without human technical expertise. "They are cutting us off," realized Trade Minister Yexpol during a meeting of the Galactic Commerce Council. "Not with hostility, but with complete indifference. They no longer need us, and they are making sure we know it." Captain Ryan Burke's exploration vessel had been joined by an entire fleet of human ships in the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. Long-range sensors detected at least 20 human vessels conducting intensive surveys of empty space. They were mapping star systems that no one had ever considered important, scanning for resources and building supply depots in the middle of nowhere. "Why are they exploring so far from inhabited space?" asked Fleet Admiral Techmore of the Altarian defense grid. "What are they looking for out there?" The paranoia was becoming dangerous. Species that had been allies for centuries were beginning to suspect each other of secret agreements with humanity. Trade partnerships were dissolving as governments focused on military preparedness instead of economic cooperation. The galactic civilization that had taken millennia to build was fracturing under the pressure of fear. President Laura Jackson had been Earth's voice in the Galactic Senate for years, but her replacement never appeared. The human seat in the Senate remained empty, and no explanation was offered. Human embassies continued to operate, but only for basic administrative functions. Diplomatic requests were acknowledged, but never answered. Ambassador Vextar found himself trying to hold the galactic government together without one of its most important members. The humans built bridges between our species, he told the emergency council session. Without them, we are remembering old hatreds that we thought were forgotten. The fear was changing the galaxy in fundamental ways. Species that had learned to cooperate were becoming isolated and suspicious. Trade networks were breaking down as governments prioritized security over prosperity. Scientific cooperation was ending as researchers refused to share discoveries that might give advantages to potential enemies. Lieutenant Commander Steve Harper's reconnaissance squadron had been reinforced with additional ships and reassigned to patrol the outer boundaries of human space. They maintained a defensive perimeter that kept all alien vessels at a safe distance, but the message was clear. Humanity was preparing for something, and they did not want witnesses. The alien intelligence services had reached the same terrifying conclusion. Humanity was not just withdrawing from galactic civilization, they were preparing to survive without it. The humans had spent 6 months cutting every connection, ending every dependency, and building the infrastructure needed for complete independence. The question was no longer what the humans were planning. The question was when they would strike, and whether the rest of the galaxy would survive what was coming. The truth came exactly 1 year after the Great Silence began. It arrived not as a whisper or a rumor, but as a broadcast that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. Admiral Gary Mitchell's face appeared on screens across 1,000 different species communication networks, his expression grave but determined. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. "We need to talk." The alien leaders who had spent months fearing human aggression suddenly found themselves desperate to hear what humanity had been hiding. In the Nexus Council chambers, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered around their displays, hanging on every word. 1 year ago, Captain Henry Clark's Deep Space Monitoring Station detected something at the edge of our galaxy. We chose silence not to prepare for war against you, but to prepare for war against something far worse. Something that has been moving toward us for longer than any of our civilizations have existed. The display behind Admiral Mitchell changed to show a star map of the galaxy's outer rim. Red markers indicated the positions of objects moving inward, from the empty space beyond known civilization. They call themselves the Devourers, though we do not know if that is their real name. They have consumed every galaxy they have encountered, leaving nothing behind but empty space and dead stars. We estimate their arrival in our galaxy at 6 months from today. Captain Henry Clark appeared on the screen next to Admiral Mitchell. The monitoring station commander who had been watching the galaxy's borders for years looked exhausted, as if he had not slept since the detection. The signals were faint at first, Clark explained, hidden in cosmic background radiation. Our detection equipment caught patterns that suggested artificial origin, but we needed months of analysis to understand what we were seeing. By the time we were certain, they were already inside the galaxy's outer boundary. The display changed again, showing technical data that few of the alien observers could understand. Energy signatures, ship configurations, and weapon readings that painted a picture of technology far beyond anything the galaxy possessed. "They are not like us," continued Admiral Mitchell. "They do not conquer or negotiate. They consume. Every world they encounter is stripped of all organic matter. Every ship they find is broken down for raw materials. Every living thing becomes fuel for their expansion." Dr. Michelle Santos appeared on the broadcast, her face pale but her voice steady. "We have analyzed their technology and biological signatures. They are a collective intelligence that spreads by consuming other life forms. They have destroyed thousands of galaxies across the universe. We are not their first target. And if we fail, we will not be their last." The alien leaders watching the broadcast felt their worst fears replaced by something infinitely more terrifying. The humans had not been preparing to destroy galactic civilization. They had been preparing to save it. "We chose silence," Admiral Mitchell continued, "because any subspace communication might have alerted them to our level of technology and preparedness. Every message sent across galactic networks, every casual conversation between ships, every diplomatic transmission could have been intercepted and analyzed by their advanced scouts. Lieutenant Commander Steve Harper's reconnaissance data appeared on the screen, showing detailed scans of the approaching Devourer fleet. The ships were massive, dark constructs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their formations stretched across light years of space, moving with the slow inevitability of a cosmic storm. We spent this year retrofitting every human, ship, colony, and installation with weapons and defensive systems based on our analysis of their technology. We converted our entire civilization into a fortress, preparing for a war that will determine the survival of every living thing in the galaxy. The broadcast showed images of human space that explained everything the alien intelligence services had observed. The construction projects were weapon installations. The resource extraction was for military production. The ship movements were tactical deployments. The humans had been preparing for the greatest battle in galactic history. "We are ready," Admiral Mitchell said simply. "But we cannot fight them alone. No single species can survive what is coming. We need every ship, every weapon, every tactical advantage that our combined civilizations can provide." Commander Lisa Hayes appeared on the broadcast from what was clearly a military command center. Banks of displays showed tactical information about defensive positions throughout human space. "We have prepared defensive positions throughout the outer rim," Hayes explained. "Weapons platforms capable of engaging their largest ships, shield generators to protect inhabited systems, supply depots to sustain a long campaign. But the Devourers outnumber us by factors we are still calculating." The reality of the situation was sinking in among the alien observers. Species that had spent months fearing human aggression suddenly realized they were facing something that made human military power seem insignificant by comparison. Dr. Susan Grant provided the scientific analysis that made the threat clear to non-military observers. "The Devourers do not follow our understanding of physics or biology. Their ships regenerate damage by consuming matter from destroyed vessels. Their weapons grow stronger by absorbing energy from defensive shields. Traditional military tactics will not work against them." Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the broadcast, looking nothing like the cheerful trader who had entertained alien crews with jokes and stories. He was now clearly a military officer, his uniform bearing decorations that marked him as a veteran of conflicts the aliens had never known about. "We have been fighting advanced scouts for the past 6 months, Morrison revealed. "Small encounters in the empty space beyond the rim. We learned their tactics, tested our weapons, and refined our strategies. Every battle taught us something, knew about how to hurt them." The alien leaders were beginning to understand the magnitude of what the humans had accomplished in secret. While the galaxy had feared human preparation for conquest, humanity had been waging a shadow war against an enemy that threatened everyone. General Kate Wilson provided the tactical briefing that explained humanity's strategy. "We cannot defeat them in open battle. They are too numerous and too adaptable. But we can slow them down, make them pay for every system they attack, and give the galaxy time to prepare proper defenses." Captain Ryan Burke's exploration data revealed the full scope of the Devourer advance. "They are not coming as a single fleet. They spread like a plague, consuming systems at the edge of inhabited space while the main force moves toward the galactic center. We estimate they will reach the first alien colonies in 5 months." The broadcast concluded with Admiral Mitchell's final message, and it was not a demand or a threat. It was a plea. "We have done everything we can to prepare for this war, but we cannot fight it alone. We need the Korvaxi battle fleets, the Altarian defense grids, the Zephyrian medical technology, the Etherian analytical systems, and the industrial capacity of every world in the galaxy. We need the cooperation that we destroyed with our silence, and we need it now." The transmission ended, leaving the alien leaders in stunned silence. The species that had feared humanity's preparation for war suddenly found themselves grateful for it. The humans had not been planning conquest. They had been planning survival. Within hours, alien fleets began moving toward human space, not as invaders or conquerors, but as desperate allies rushing to join a fight that would determine the fate of everything they had ever known. The real war was about to begin, and humanity's silence had been the calm before a storm that would test every living thing in the galaxy. The Devourers were coming, and only together did the galaxy have any hope of survival.